This is my vlog for outlining the history of racism in America. What I felt like um, I should do is kind of go to the roots of racism and just kind of the beginnings of the history in America, and with that comes slavery. So, racism, in a sense, all started because of slavery, and this just kind of preconceived idea that these people that are used as slaves are less than or not even close to equal to that of the people who own them. So this is the white slave owners and the black slaves that they had. Um, so through time, this has kind of progressed from slavery to slaves being free, but then to a period of time where black people were hated across America and just looked down upon constantly, um, and their rights were taken away and they weren't viewed as people. And obviously, we've progressed from that, but there is still racism in America. It still exists. And so now I will be going into the roots of slavery and the roots of racism from history.com. So I looked up an article. This article is entitled Slavery in America. This is from history.com. And it kind of starts off with how slavery started. So it says, throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, people were kidnapped from the continent of Africa, forced into slavery in the American colonies, and exploited to work as indentured servants and to labor in the production of crops such as tobacco and cotton. So these people were taken from their homes, taken from their lives pretty much, in the 17th and 18th century, and they were used as slaves. They weren't paid, they weren't treated as people. They just worked every day, day and night, for the slave owners, and all for the production of crops and tobacco. So we can see that slavery in America all started in the 17th and 18th century, but looking even further back, we can see that slavery existed all over the world. Even in the Bible, the Egyptians had slaves, and this is just all due to people looking down on a race just because of what they look like or where they're from, and thinking that they are more deserving than that race. And America is no exception to that. America started their racism early in the 17th and 18th centuries, when America was first being built. And with that, the roots of racism kind of are pretty deep, considering that America was kind of built on slavery in a way. The industries and the money made in America was due to slave labor. So obviously we'll have deep roots from our past of racism and just inequality in our nation. So as we move along, by the 19th century, this article says, by the 19th century, America's westward expansion and the Great Abolition Movement provoked a great debate over slavery that would tear the nation apart in the bloody Civil War. So the Civil War is a great example of racism and slavery in America. This war was fought for many different reasons, but one major reason being slavery. The Union had very different views from the South and the Confederacy, and slavery was a big part of that. The Union wanted to free the slaves. They didn't want slaves to be in America. They wanted slaves to be free, as many were already up north. They were freed, but many black people down in the South were enslaved. And so through the Civil War, that is a big example, and a period of time when racism was a major part, and people died because of it, people fought because of it, our nation was shaped because of it. Now I kind of think to myself sometimes, what if the Confederacy won? What would America look like today? Would there still be slaves? Would racism be what it's like today? What would racism look like? So as we kind of move along, slavery ended up ending technically on paper due to the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln. And this, as well as the 13th Amendment, technically freed slaves, but there was still a lot of pushback. A lot of people didn't like Lincoln. He was assassinated, and America was kind of shaped off of these things. And so yeah, that's the beginnings of history of racism in America.